Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Hey, you guys. Welcome back to the Health by Haven podcast. Hope you're having a great start to your week. It's been a little while since I've sat down and recorded. I did a lot of batch recording of podcast episodes before August because I knew we were going to be in the midst of a move and be in Europe for most of August, and things were just going to get hectic, and I wanted to make sure that I still had great health content coming out to you guys every week. So it's good to be back. And today I'm joined by fan favorite, back by popular demand, a very special guest today.
I'm glad to hear that I'm in high demand. Apparently all of your listeners want me on the show.
Waffles wanted to join the podcast. I don't know if you guys will hear her in the background, but
yeah, she is actually the guest that everyone has been asking for is Waffles, not me. So you're stuck with me.
And for those of you who don't recognize his voice, this is my husband, Billy Quinlan, on the show with us today, as well as our golden retriever, Waffles. We are recording as we speak. Today is Saturday, August 30th, and we are sitting in our New York City apartment, which still doesn't feel quite real. Recording at our tiny little bistro table. We're getting used to city life and downsizing everything. But today we are on here to share with you a bit about all of our European travels for the last month. Hopefully you guys get some good recs, but if not, if you're not planning any trips, hopefully this just gives you some good entertainment while you're driving or running or doing some chores.
Yeah, I'll just give you a really detailed verbal description of all the cool things we saw and the good things that we ate. So we're not going to use the main sense that you would want for anything we're going to cover in the show today.
Kind of straying from normal health content, but hopefully you guys enjoy the chit chat. So anyways, let's dive into it. Okay, our trip to France and Italy in 2025, we flew to Paris August 5th and 6th. We had like a red eye over to Paris, and I had been before a few years ago with one of my best friends, but Billy had never been before. So I was really excited to show him the city. We stayed over, oh my gosh, I should have looked this up. The neighborhood that we stayed in. It was like Paris. It wasn't far from Palais Royal. I can put some more details in the show notes later, but it was very easy walk to the River Seine and the Louvre and Palais Royal and the Opera House. So we were in probably, honestly, a pretty touristy location, but great hotel. You want to give some updates?
Yeah, I mean, it was great because we were tourists. That does tend to help in the touristy area. But yeah, great location, was easy to get out for Haven to go on a morning run, for me to go on a morning run / walk far behind her, and pick up the croissants for the morning to eat after the run and undo most of the fitness activity we just done.
Okay, I think you're undervaluing the role you're playing in refueling us after the run.
Oh, I think I played the most important part on the team on those mornings. I mean, yeah, running, that's hard. But what are you going to do after the run? You want to sit down and you're in Paris. You want to eat a croissant. So somebody's got to do it. And I sacrificed my time and effort for the team to fill that role.
Wow, so selfless of you. When I went to Paris in 2022, I had a goal of a pastry a day. And so I told Billy we had to do that again. And I think we crushed it.
We were at least at 1.0 pastries a day per person.
At least. A thing about Billy as well, he loves a good city park, a good garden. So after our runs along the river or run explorations, which we can get into, we sat in the Tuileries garden and ate pastries. So very picturesque breakfast.
And places to sit. And it wasn't super hot yet. So it was a good time to sit outside and eat the aforementioned croissant.
Oh, yeah. So we actually, when we left Knoxville, it was like 95 degrees every day. It was sweltering heat. Like, honestly, all my runs, I was dying and I was like, why am I training for a marathon right now? Like, this is hellacious. But when we landed in Paris, and I guess I should back up, we had packed up our entire apartment in Knoxville, and the movers had taken all of our stuff into storage, besides like a suitcase of clothes each, essentially, that we were going to be taking to Europe about a week, not even a week later. But when we packed everything up, it was like 95 plus degree days. And when we landed in Paris, it was what, like 58, 60? And it was like kind of cold. It was definitely a shock to the system.
Just wait for the next insert number of days we were there.
Yeah, we were like, oh, it's chilly. Like, we should have packed a jacket or a sweater. Like, we weren't prepared.
Yeah, we were young and dumb and thought it was going to be cold at that point.
So, anyways, Paris. Let's give some highlights. What were some of the places that you enjoyed eating, seeing, etc.?
So I really enjoyed one of the days we went up to Sacre Coeur. Is that right? Okay. Haven did most of the planning for this. I was just kind of along for the ride. But at a restaurant up there in one of the little town squares near this beautiful basilica that definitely has a name and a lot of historic significance that is just eluding me and will always elude me. I had maybe the best chicken Caesar salad I've ever had in my life, which is a traditional French food, I know.
It was good because, as Billy mentioned, we were young and dumb when it was cold. It quickly got very hot on our trip in Europe. And if anyone has been to Paris, you can take the metro up to like the top of the city. And then when you get out, you still have to hike like a bajillion stairs to get up to this basilica and have like a big overlook of the city. I mean, it's worth it. It's a really great view, but it was hot. And so, yeah, we both had really great salads up there, as well as I had an Aperol Spritz. Did you have a beer at that lunch? I think, yeah, Billy had a beer. I like walked past a couple of those having the spritzes and they were full of ice. And I was like, that is what I want. Because if you're not familiar, if you haven't been to Europe lately, there's no ice in like any of the drinks, no ice in the water, anything. It's kind of like room temperature. And when it's a million degrees outside and you've been walking everywhere, I don't know. I saw the ice and I had to have the Aperol Spritz.
Yeah, and there's a serious lack of air conditioning too. So the room temperature to start with is like 90. So you're drinking warm water.
The first day we were just kind of like wandering around in a daze because it was a red eye and we hadn't really slept.
Yeah, I was starting sentences to Haven and not finishing them, but not even realizing I didn't finish the sentence.
I was like, Billy, hello. Are you there? What do you mean?
What?
And so the first day, I mean, we walked around a ton to sightsee, like along the river. We walked to the Eiffel Tower, but we didn't do like a ton of organized activity that day. But on day 2, I knew I wanted to get a run in. And so that was like our first, I like to coin the term runsploration, where I made sure we stopped at as many sites as we could throughout the run. And let's just reference our little journal because I'm not even going to remember all of the spots we saw. So I try to keep a journal when I travel so I can look back and remember the places we saw, the places we ate, the places we stayed, like what we liked, what we didn't like, so that if we ever go back. And for eventually I'll write like some guides to all of these cities to send on my Substack. So it's good to be able to reference back, but it looks like we did 6 miles. We ran past the Opera House. We ran past the Palace of Madeleine, the Palace of Elise, the Galeries Nationale, the Petit Palace, the Arc de Triomphe. What else? Eiffel Tower. We ran along the Seine. We ran by the Louvre. So lots of good sightseeing in that 6-mile run on our first true morning. We did land early the first day, but it was a blend of the day before. Shocking no one. The runs are usually my favorite parts of a trip in a new city because it's fun to be able to explore before it's really busy out, before it's super hot out in this case. So it was fun to kind of double duty, get the miles in and do the sightseeing. We were there for 2 nights and then we took a plane to Roma. Neither one of us had ever been to Italy, and I was really excited to visit for the architecture and the history, but honestly, the food as well. Let's be real. And my little brother Jake moved to Germany about 6 months ago, and so we got to meet up with him in Rome, which was the biggest highlight of this leg of the trip. And so we flew into Rome. Our plane was delayed like an hour. So I think we arrived around 8 p.m. in Rome. And Jake was supposed to arrive around 8. His flight also got delayed from Germany. So I think he arrived closer to 9. And we had a 9:45 p.m. dinner reservation, which if you know me in real life or if you've been following along, you guys know I value my sleep and my sleep routine. And I am early to bed and early riser. So this was very uncharacteristic, but we figured when in Rome, I mean, we were literally in Rome. So we had to be able to get the most out of the trip. And we went to an amazing restaurant that night that was recommended by some of our friends.
So that really late dinner the first night, we went to this place called Tiburoni. It is on the oldest bridge that is still standing in Rome, which Rome is very old. So it's a very old bridge, and fortunately strong and sturdy enough to withstand the test of time. And the amount of pasta that we ate that night after Jake was able to join us, even though he got even more delayed than us for our late dinner. Yeah, we got 3 pastas to split around the table. It was like a cacio e pepe, a one with with tomato and olive oil. And mostly Jake ate, it was like a ravioli that also had bacon on it. And it was definitely the best pasta at the table.
The pasta was amazing. I would highly recommend this restaurant, but also definitely make reservations because it was still popping at 9:45. But we sat outside and reunited with Jake and we shut the place down. I think we were literally the last people to leave that night.
Yeah, we definitely were. Like the staff was hanging out on the patio, like at another table in the corner, like having post-work drinks and joking about their day and probably complaining about us still sitting there.
But we hadn't seen Jake in 6 months, so I wasn't about to rush. And yeah, the food was incredible. We had great wine that night as well. And then we walked back to our Airbnb.
This is something that we did multiple times in Rome is we discovered we were about just beyond like comfortable walking distance from the Airbnb, but not so far out of range that Haven wouldn't say, let's just walk. So we got a nice moonlight stroll through Rome, through all the historic sites at like midnight to 1 a.m. But fortunately, we had Jake is really into Rome and the Roman Empire. So we basically had an unpaid tour guide the whole trip. So we got a free like private tour when it wasn't super busy out through the streets of Rome.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of my like best memories. Us walking back at like 1 a.m. to our Airbnb. But like there were actually still people out. It wasn't busy, but there were like people out and about. And Rome has great uplighting on all their monuments, so we could still see stuff. And it looked, almost grander in the dark, but with the uplighting. And he was giving us a history lesson as we walked home. And it was really fun and really pretty sights. So the next day, we had 3 nights in Rome. The next morning, we actually had an 8:45 a.m. tour of the Colosseum. So we had to be up and at it after a late night.
But the early tour was actually a great pre-planning by us because 1, it gets incredibly busy, but 2, and I think this plays into why so many people were out at 1 a.m. looking at historic sites. Rome is the leg of the trip where the high temperatures started hitting triple digits for us. Like it was steadily highs of 100 for almost the entire rest of the trip from this point on. So morning at the Colosseum was a good move because it is sunny.
And I mean, it was already hot too in the sun that early. So we were like trying to strategically be in the shade as much as we could. But this was also the only leg of the trip that we stayed in an Airbnb because we wanted to all be able to stay together. And it was warm. Like they had AC, but like not American AC. It was never really like cool in there. And we like kept the blinds shut and everything like it was a cave to try to preserve the air. So anyways, it was like hot the entire time. I don't regret going on this trip. Like August was the only time we could go, but I will not be going back to Italy in August if I can help it. It was so incredibly hot. It just almost like made you not want to go and do stuff, which is not fun.
But if you do find yourself in Italy in August and maybe the fine city of Roma, book your Colosseum tour first thing in the morning. There's going to be a line to get in first thing in the morning, but it moves quick. And then depending on what ticket you buy, I know the one that we got, like we got to self-tour and walk around the Colosseum with our, again, unpaid tour guide, Jake. Thank you, Jake. So we got a lot of the history that way. I'm sure there are a lot of like online guides and stuff that you can download yourself for free instead of paying for a guide there. But you also have the option to go over to the Forum, which is like the old like town basically that Rome had built up over the years around the city center and the Colosseum. That is also very sunny and hot, but really cool because it's oddly well preserved for how old it is. Haven and I went to Greece last year, and there are a lot of ruins there where it's just like, this used to be X, Y, or Z, and there's like a couple rocks on the ground. This is like most of the building is still there, or it's been turned into a museum, or it's just there in full, and you can walk around. So I definitely recommend doing that if you have the time and doing it early in the day.
Yeah, I think even the lowest level ticket into the Colosseum gets you into the Roman Forum as well. And either people didn't know or didn't care because it's like the Colosseum's so famous. People who go to Rome, they're like, I have to go and see it to like say I've been there. But maybe they just didn't care about going into the Forum. But I almost thought the Forum was cooler. Like the Colosseum is bigger and it's grander, but like all the stuff that's still in the Forum was almost more interesting to me. So anyways, I really enjoyed that, but it was incredibly hot already. I'm glad we went at like 9 or 10 a.m.
And this was the morning that I discovered, and I'm glad that we collectively, well, actually, Jake definitely already knew this. Haven, you might have already known this. I didn't know how readily available just water taps were around the streets of Rome, where it's just a little water fountain running all the time. It's available. It tastes good. It's cold. And fortunately, there were many around the Forum that we could take advantage of because they were much needed.
After that, we went and had the best pizza of our trip. And it like looked like this little like kind of dive counter restaurant. Like you ordered at the counter and then they had a couple of tables, but it was nowhere like fancy or nice looking. But the pizza was amazing.
Yeah, it would be really easy to just blow by this place. And honestly, only found it because one, it was close to us, and two, like the Airbnb guide that they left for us named it as a pizzeria famous for its pizza, which I think that kind of goes without saying for pizzerias. But yeah, it was amazing. You got to pay by the pound for your pizza, which I think might be the superior way to pay for your pizza over slices or just pizza pies.
Yeah, actually, I've never been somewhere where I like pointed, I wanted this like margarita pizza that had some burrata on top. And they were like, how much? Like this much? And they had a pizza cutter and just like hacked off a piece of pizza like it wasn't pre-sliced or anything. I do not have the name off the top of my head, but I can put it in my Substack guide to Rome later. So make sure you're subscribed, shameless plug, to the Health by Haven Substack so that you can get the name of this place because it was amazing. We actually went there 2 lunches in a row because it was so good. And then that afternoon, Jake and I went to the Capitoline Museum. It's like a history museum, also has some art. It's also like, I don't know, a half mile from the Coliseum. Like a lot of this stuff was really close by. And that was very cool to learn more about the history. There's like a ruin of a building like built within the museum as well, which was wild. And then you could see some really old bronze statues and marble sculptures. It's just amazing the amount of detail that they were able to put into this stuff so long ago, way before so much technology that we have today. And the fact that it's still preserved is honestly just mind-blowing. And then that night we went to pasta making class. This was a Airbnb experience that one of our friends had recommended to us as well. And so we took a car like 20 minutes to a bit more of a residential area, kind of near the Vatican, to a pasta making class. And this was a highlight of the trip for me, honestly. There were two other couples in our class as well, but we went into this little kitchen. It was like a basement kitchen. I'm assuming this woman like lived in the building, but like higher up, it wasn't connected to her full apartment. But it was so well done. She had like everything set out and prepped for us. We got to make two different types of pasta that night. So you're making like the pasta noodles from scratch. And we did a cacio e pepe and then a ravioli that was filled with a like ricotta and lemon and was it zucchini, peas, like a green ricotta filling. It was so delicious. She made the filling and the sauce, but we did the pasta, and then she had also made us these like amazing bruschettas, 3 different kinds. There's a traditional tomato bruschetta. What was your favorite one?
There was a gorgonzola and was it pear maybe? That was just delicious.
And then the last one was like a ribboned zucchini that had been marinated with another kind of cheese as well. Yeah, they were all incredible. It was so fun to make our own pasta. I had never done it before. Jake had, because he's an amazing cook, but it was really fun to get to do that experience. And, you know, it felt like, oh, we're like just in this little Italian kitchen making pasta. So traditional. We're so cultured.
And we did such a good job. I mean, all right, the pasta was amazing. Like, the fillings and sauces were really good, but just the fresh pasta itself was just incredibly light and easy to eat and delicioso. And it was a good time.
I don't think delicioso is Italian.
I wasn't trying to speak Italian.
Okay. And then that night, since we were so close to the Vatican, we walked by it that evening and
Entry number 2 of after we have our evening activity, Haven says, let's walk.
The wine had nothing to do with my thoughts that we could definitely walk home. It was probably like a 2-mile walk. I don't know. It was fine. But we got to stop by the Vatican on the way home and see it from the outside because I didn't plan ahead enough to get us tickets inside, which I feel okay about because honestly, like it was so stunning from the outside. It was really cool to see. And honestly, it was like really cool to see at night. I felt because again, it was like lit up really nicely. And also, this is probably going to make me sound like an idiot, but I didn't realize the Vatican was a separate country, like kind of surrounded by Italy. So that was cool too. We technically went into another country that night. The next morning, all 3 of us ran together. We did a 10K run through the city that Jake planned to take us on a runsploration through Rome. And he got us by a ton more sites and like told us the history as we were running by them. And I just felt also like if anyone wants to be a run tour guide in a city that they live in that a lot of people vacation to, I mean, I would pay for that personally. Maybe I should start it in New York City because it's my favorite way to explore a city, and getting to do that. And also instead of being like, whoa, this looks cool, but like not knowing anything about it until we look it up ourselves, Jake was just like rattling off all these facts about Roman history at all of these different places as well. So that was also a huge highlight of the trip for me. We ran by the Colosseum again, of course, the Trevi Fountain, which we had to stop and make a wish, of course.
Mine was for the temperature to cool down and the run to be easy, which did not happen for me. I can say that now because I can confirm that one didn't come true, but I can't speak to Haven's.
You're not supposed to tell people your wish and it won't come true.
Well, it already happened. It can't come true. It's in the past.
You wasted your wish on the Trevi Fountain on that.
I had some struggles with runs on this trip.
Because of the heat. Well, I can't tell you my wish because then it won't come true. But if you're in Rome, you have to go and make a wish with a coin, the Trevi Fountain. Here's the thing. The fountain was cool. There's so much cool stuff in Rome, though, that it's kind of like, this is just a place that got famous somehow. And so it's super crowded and everyone has to go to say they've been. But honestly, like, there's so many other cool things. I don't know why it's such a big deal.
It's for the Instagram.
Do it for the gram, I guess. We ran by the Pantheon. We ran by, I can't remember the name of this field. Sorry, Jake. But this historic site where they had like the original chariot races in ancient Roman times. We ran by the Roman Forum again, a lot of other places. So I really enjoyed that. Jake found us a great breakfast spot for coffee and croissants that morning. I had a pistachio one. Billy had a Nutella one. I think Jake had pistachio as well. They were delish.
Yeah, something Europe does right is the sweet breakfast. I was missing the like American bacon, eggs, toast, bagel, whatever, but the sweet croissant started to be a great way to start the day and, get a nice little sugar spike before noon. What could go wrong?
After breakfast, we were sugared up and caffeinated up. We went to the National Museum. It had a bajillion sculptures. I mean, the amount of sculptures that have been preserved there is just mind-blowing. And then that afternoon, we decided we wanted to find somewhere to get some Italian beers and play some cards and just hang out for a bit, take a little break from the museums. And so we went to a brewery called Birra Balladine. And then after the brewery, we went to a neighborhood called
Trastevere.
Billy's my pronunciation guy. It was very cute, but it had clearly gotten popular, so it was very slammed with tourists because it was little roads. But we went to a organic wine bar that our friends recommended called Latteria, and it was super yummy. We sat outside, we shared a bottle of wine, we had a salad, we had a burrata, we had a pistachio lasagna. What am I forgetting? Oh,
Jake and I split a meat board.
Yeah, it was a massive charcuterie board too. Lots of different cured meats. So that was a wonderful last dinner together in Rome before we took the train to the beach the next morning.
Chugga chugga. We're talking trains, my friends.
Billy loves trains.
If you want to get me to talk about something and you just want to hear my voice and just me ramble on and on, just get me talking about trains.
So Billy and I took the train to Cinque Terre. We were very sad to leave Jake, but we were also excited to go and see the Italian coast. So we took the train. We stayed at a little town called Monterosso, and I would highly recommend this. It was busy with Italian vacationers and maybe some other European vacationers because we were there on their main holiday, but it was nothing like Paris or Rome, packed with tourists from all over the world.
Yeah, and apparently it is the biggest of the 5 beaches over there that make up Cinque Terre, but it still felt very small. It was just basically a road along the beachfront that had a bunch of different restaurants and hotels and apartments on it. And then you could go up the hill further away from the beach, and I'm sure it's more residential up that way. But it was still a small kind of beach town feel. Yeah,
there's not a ton to do besides just go and lay on the beach. And it's a small beach too.
It was the exact right amount of things to do after 5 days at that point of a lot of sightseeing and activities. It was good to get a day of just, let's go sit on a beach.
I will say, not the best food of the trip, and not a ton of activity. But if you're wanting a beach vacation with crystal clear water and very slow pace, this was a great spot. And I think it's probably a lot less busy than the Amalfi Coast or Lake Como, places that have really, really blown up on Instagram.
Let's talk about the beach itself. So the sand was rockier, but the water was so cold. And I still don't know if that was just by comparison to how it was outside, or if it was actually just a colder body of water compared to what we see on the coast that we go to, we used to go to South Carolina or New Jersey or wherever.
No, I think the water was actually really cold as well, even though it was really hot out. It was a relief, but it was almost you felt a little bit numb if you were in there for too long. So anyways, went to the beach, went to dinner. Next morning, we tried to go on a run. There's really not much place to run, so it kind of turned into a run/walk. We kind of hiked along the cliffside because there are like kind of cliffs that drop off into the ocean here. And so amazing views, not a great run workout, but we got some movement in. And then we basically laid at the beach all day, which was awesome. And it, like Billy said, it was a good change of pace to be able to like relax after a lot of museums and a lot of sightseeing before like our next leg of the trip was Florence. And so it was a good little break. Really enjoyed our laying on the beach, reading, swimming in the water. I ate an olive focaccia on the beach for lunch. That was super good. Probably the best thing that I had there. And the hotel breakfast was really good. We stayed at a hotel called Hotel Baia, and I would recommend it, honestly. It was a good hotel to stay in. It had a little private beach, which was nice because the public part of the beach got really busy. The next day, we opted for a hike instead of a run because we just knew there wasn't much to run. But I don't think Billy knew how much hiking we were getting into.
So I don't like to mislead anyone. I've never been on a hike before this endeavor. And yes, I did live in Tennessee for many years. Yes, my dad worked in parks growing up. But I've never been on a hike before until this very day in Monte Rosso, Al Mar.
And yes, both of his in-laws are retired National Park rangers, and they're going to be appalled when they listen to this.
I mean, I don't have much more to say other than I've never been on a hike before. I thought we were going for a nice walk along the coastline. And yes, it's a little steep sometimes, but I did not think I was in for hike number one of my life. And it will be possibly one of one.
Okay, but not if we go to the Alps. You have to hike. And when we go to the Rockies.
We'll talk about that.
He'll get some more hikes in. Don't you guys worry. So we climbed 10 billion stairs. Some were like man-made stairs. Some were just like rocks that you climbed up to get to basically the very highest point we could. There was a big vineyard up there, and then you got to overlook the water, and you could see like the little rainbow town of Monte Rosso down at the bottom.
Yeah, I counted. It was actually 10 trillion steps.
Okay, good to know. So noted, if you're ever vacationing in Monte Rosso and you want to go for a hike, it's steep.
Well, and it's beautiful up there. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you actually set out and you're someone who enjoys hikes and it's not getting super hot out, we did this first in the morning, so it's not like it was at, peak heat of the day. But if that's something you really like to do, it would be a beautiful place to do that because you're looking at the coast on one side, these beautiful cliffs on the other side, the rainbow row basically of houses along the waterfront in another direction. So it is beautiful. But be ready for it.
After that, we spent a little bit of time out on the beach before we grabbed lunch and hopped on our train to Florence. We stayed at a hotel in Florence called Hotel, you say it.
Deglio Raffi.
And it's basically like right on the river there. Definitely in a touristy part of Florence, but it was very convenient, nice hotel. I really enjoyed the location, and they have a rooftop bar and restaurant, and it has really amazing views of the city up there.
Yeah, it was a great hotel. Haven chose it and booked it, and I think she might have went a little overboard on that leg, but I'm not complaining about it because it was very nice.
Here's the thing about Billy and I. I'm always the one being like, we can be a bit more frugal. Like, we're not going to be in the room. We're going to be wandering around.
To contrast, when I was like 10 discussing a Disney trip with my parents, I said, go deluxe or don't go at all, quote unquote.
So we both compromise a little bit on our travel and try to meet in the middle. But this was a lot of planning for this trip because 2.5 weeks, that's a lot. And we were going to a bunch of different cities in 2 different countries. And this was the last place I booked. And I think I was just over it. But I did not really remember booking like this nice suite room that we were in. So whoops.
She did a great job. It was a great spot. It was definitely in like one of the core like touristy and shopping parts of Florence, but that kind of worked out for us because that was one of our shortest stops. It was really more like a day and a half in Florence when you count our travel in, but there's plenty of restaurants and sites to see right near the hotel.
Then we went to dinner just like a block down, another good view of the city, but I might not be welcomed back in Florence.
Haven offended Italians everywhere at that dinner by asking a seemingly mundane question to the server about one of the dishes on their menu. Very famous in Florentine cooking is truffle. Apparently, it's a big deal. So there's this truffle menu that they had that included a bunch of pastas and other dishes with truffles on them. He goes, this pasta with the truffle on it, can I get like cheese or like some Parmesan on that? And he like visibly recoiled and like just goes, no, you can't.
So basically, we learned truffle is sacred as well as mushrooms. You do not pair either of those things with cheese or anything else. You let them be the star of the dish.
Apparently, it's the same with seafood too.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, good to know. I don't eat seafood, but now you know, don't be a dummy like me in Florence and don't offend them. Okay, day 2 of Florence was our runsploration through Florence because I needed to have one in each city at least for my favorite way to discover the city, but also I'm training for the New York City Marathon, so I couldn't just not run for 2.5 weeks. So I used my Koros app. It's like my brand of running watch. If you have a running watch, I think most of them have this feature that you can get on the app and like map out a route. Since neither one of us had ever been to Florence, I wanted to make sure we passed by as many sites as we could on the run. And I wanted to get like a 10K-ish distance in. And so we got out. It was great because we weren't even that early for run standards, but there was like no one out when we were running. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is not going to be as busy as Rome at all. Like, no problem. We ran by a bunch of sites, but notably the Church of Santa Maria del Fiore, which is just breathtaking. Google it if you've not been. It's humongous and amazing. It's an architectural masterpiece, honestly. We ran by its bell tower as well. We went by Palazzo Vecchio and just so many other amazing places that I would just highly recommend getting semi-lost on the run in Florence. Only thing, Italy is covered in cobblestones everywhere. So like same with our run in Rome and then our run here, like definitely slow and definitely watch your ankles when you're running on the cobblestone. We then had another great hotel breakfast. I mean, the spread in Europe for breakfast, just amazing.
Yeah, we're not talking about like the Hampton Inn. Here is a tray of eggs and an omelet maker, or in the alternative, here's a brown paper bag with a muffin in it. This was a very big hotel breakfast in comparison to anything. It was like fresh scrambled eggs, potatoes, fruits, vegetables, breakfast meats, cured Italian meats, cheeses. Apparently there was a little like mini pancake or something station that we just missed because there was so much stuff. You could miss the pancake station.
Yeah, and they had fresh pastries as well. And then they also would like make you coffee. It wasn't like, here's this gross brewed coffee that's been sitting on a warmer for like 3 hours. It was like, what can we prepare for you? And so I had the best coffee, I think, of the whole trip at this place. So I got a soy milk latte, but it was just really, really good. After breakfast, I really wanted to go into the Church of Santa Maria del Fiore, but when we got there, the line was absolutely nuts, like wrapped around the building. It probably would have taken hours. So we just opted to enjoy it from the outside a little bit more, not spend half our day in a line. And then we continued on strolling through the city. Billy, maybe your favorite meal, I'm not sure. You wrote a love letter to the sandwich in our travel journal. I'm going to let you tell us all about it, or maybe you can read it, whatever you want.
I'm sorry you had to see that love letter to the sandwich. I didn't mean for you to hear those words of mine. All right. So in Florence and now in New York, and I think they're opening one in Nashville, there's a really famous sandwich place called Al Antico Vineo. And they do large sandwiches on a bread that looks like a focaccia. It's not a focaccia. If you call it a focaccia, they get mad. And then you don't want to offend all the Italians like Haven did. But it's like a big sandwich with very fresh cured Italian meats or vegetables and cheeses. And like they all look just fantastic. If you look it up, you'll find it everywhere online. They get a line that goes like down and around the block. And they've got 3 separate storefronts on the same street that all have their own separate lines that go that far. Now, our European travel expert, Jake, our European correspondent, he had been to Florence before and said, hey, I've got a secret. There's a place next door that has sandwiches that are exactly the same and amazing. So we skipped the line and went to the Sciatica sandwich place next door. And oh my goodness, the flavors in the sandwich. First, the bread's amazing. Second, the flavors. Everything in it. Like I got a sandwich that was like prosciutto and cheese and like a sauce. Like it was a very simple sandwich, just like 3 or 4 ingredients. It was amazing every single bite. It's huge, and just because it was so good, I still wanted to eat more. I still think of that sandwich when I close my eyes at night.
Do you want to tell the people where this place was, or are you gatekeeping it?
It's literally next door to El Antico Vineo, the very famous sandwich place. It is directly next to it.
If you want the name of it, subscribe to the Health by Haven Substack.
We might need to make that behind an even like bigger paywall. I'm scared to give up the name of this place.
Maybe it'll be only for the annual subscribers. Clearly, it's left an impact on Billy. I had a sandwich as well. I had the vegetarian one. It was also incredible. My only problem with it was that I was very hot and we were eating outside in the heat and I was eating a hot sandwich. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it wasn't 100 degrees outside as well. But it was, the bread was amazing and the vegetables were like marinated and seasoned so well, and it was very, very good. After the sandwiches, we had to go to a museum because culture. What is it called?
Museo del Bargello.
And we saw a lot of art and a lot of history again. And then we had to shop a little bit because I wanted to get a genuine Italian leather handbag, and that I found.
Tell us more about that, Haven. How'd that go?
I love it. She's beautiful. She's perfect. I don't like spending a lot of money on things like that. I'm not a huge purse person, but I wanted like a very classic looking handbag that was small that I could use in a lot of scenarios. And so that was my one purchase really of the trip, and I love it and I regret nothing. That night we went to another cooking class. We had so much fun at the one in Rome that I booked one in Florence. And this one was just with one other couple, and their like little toddler came as well. We also made 2 kinds of pasta at this cooking class. We made a long flat pasta, and then we made a tortellini as well. And we did a butter and sage sauce for one. And then we did more of like a tomato gazpacho, like cold sauce with one, and they were both amazing. We actually like made the sauces at this one as well. The woman who led the class, she was actually French, but she moved to Florence in 2001, so she had been there for a really long time. And it was really cool to just see like the different perspectives, the different regions of Italy, I guess, favor different things for their pasta. So like she liked a ciabatta pasta, so we made the pasta completely with semolina flour, whereas the one in Rome, we made it like 50-50 all-purpose and semolina. So anyways, I would highly recommend anytime you're in Italy finding one of those classes. Like we just did it on Airbnb experiences as well, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Which brings us to Bordeaux. We had a marathon travel day to get from Florence to Bordeaux. We had 3 planes and 3 countries to get there. So we started, of course, in Italy. We had 2 stops in Germany. So, I mean, technically you can check Germany off of our list of countries, but we never actually set foot outside. So I'm not really counting it. But we flew through Munich and then Frankfurt to get to Bordeaux. Honestly, everything went smoothly until the very end. We were only delayed like an hour, though, I think. And then do you want to talk about our dinner the first night in Bordeaux and a little bit about our hotel?
I would love to. So we get to Bordeaux, and my lovely wife and your fearless host, Haven, decided to spoil me/us a little bit because I finished law school, and as a graduation gift, she was like, let's go to this really bougie resort outside of Bordeaux near the village of Saint-Emilion called Le Chateau Grand Barrel and Spa. It's some combination of those words. You'll find it. But we get there, and it is beautiful. I mean, it looks castle-esque a little bit. So we get there, check in, drop our bags off, and once again, it's like 9 o'clock or something. So we're like, immediately to a very late European dinner. Fortunately, the hotel had a very good restaurant down in their lobby. So we sit down, server comes up. Before we even order anything, he walks up with a little plate of 3 tiny little bites for the table to just get us started, to wet the beak, so to say, without even ordering an appetizer.
I did not like that.
Okay, well, that's how I would describe it. But they were very good. It was 3 little bites. One was like a zucchini cream on a tart. One was this really well marinated tomato, just like incredibly sweet bite that was just delicious. I can't remember what the third one was, but
The third one was like a creamed cauliflower and like a little puff. It was good, but the other two were better. The tomato literally like melted in your mouth. It was amazing. Yeah, and we had wine. Then I had a like eggplant vegetarian dish as my main. And what did you have that night?
yeah, I had one of the 2 best duck breasts I've ever had in my life. The other one being, of course, the one that your brother Jake made a couple years ago. So this is a Jake heavy episode. We got to really work on that. We can't have him hear this and get too cocky. But yeah, had a nice duck at dinner. It was fantastic. It was a really good, rich, but not too big meal at the end of a long travel day to finally say, we have reached the luxury portion of our trip to Europe.
Yeah, and don't forget the little desserts they brought us that night. They like tried to get us to order dessert, and I was like, it's late. I'm full. I want to go to bed. But then they brought 3 little desserts anyways. And the chocolate hazelnut one, of course, was the best. So the next day, we woke up in our vineyard-facing room. I wanted to get some speed work in on the treadmill at the hotel. Not my favorite way to run on vacation, if I'm being honest, but got it done, felt good, got a good sweat on. Then we had room service come to our hotel room because I really wanted to eat out on our balcony, like overlooking the vineyards. Room service was okay. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it if you're staying at this hotel because they have such a great breakfast buffet and you can get a lot more variety, a lot more bang for your buck, in my opinion. But that morning we spent like an hour at the pool maybe before we went and had our first vineyard tour.
Yeah, our first tour was in like the next region over. So I guess like slightly closer to Bordeaux. It's an area called Pomerol. And I only took French for about 2 months in elementary school, so this is going to get ugly. Chateau Mézère, where we had a really nice, what ended up being private tour because we were the only people there for it. Let me tell you, Haven and this person working at the winery saw eye to eye on a lot of woo-woo things that may or may not have already been featured on this show. I wouldn't be shocked if they come up again down the road, if we're being honest, because it was very health oriented and really interesting science, but it was like Haven's eyes lit up. She asked so many questions.
Yeah, my girl Lisa and I, we are 2 peas in a pod, but she was telling us all about their winery and it's biodynamic farming, which she was essentially explaining to us is like a step above organic. So there's a bunch of different certification levels and protocols that you have to follow about how you're growing the grapes and what other plants that you're planting on the property and how you're fertilizing and how you're spraying crops and all of those things. It was super, super fascinating. They even do different like fertilizing and nourishing of the plants depending on the moon cycles, which is like the woo-woo part Billy's talking about. But she was explaining us like the science behind it as well. So like if you think of tides going in and out with the moon and its different phases, same thing with like the sap that's coming up and down the grapevines. And so I don't know, it's really, really cool. I would encourage you to Google this if you're all interested, or just pop on over to Pomerol and have this wine tour. But very fascinating. Biodynamic is something that I will certainly look for now when I'm looking at wines to buy. I'm not sure if vineyards outside of France follow that or if it's like a French standard. But anyways, it was very interesting. And then we got to have a tasting of a few of their wines at the end of the tour. Afterwards, we went back to the hotel, got to spend the rest of the afternoon at the pool, which was lovely because it was probably our hottest day in Bordeaux, and just had like some snacks at the pool for lunch. And then we went into town for dinner this night. We went to a little place in the downtown Saint-Emilion called Chez Pascal. Incredible food. That was probably the best, well, definitely the best dinner that I had in Bordeaux. It was delicious. So if you ever find yourself in the region, I would highly recommend. And if you go, you have to order the chocolate sphere for dessert. Billy and I asked our waiter, we were like, what is this? Because it didn't have any sort of description. He was like, just get it. And we were like, okay. And it was like a kind of like a chocolate mousse with like a hard chocolate shell. It was so incredible.
It was absolute truth in advertising. It was chocolate. It was a sphere. And they just nailed it with the naming, I think.
And it was delightful. Next morning, we got up and finally had our run exploration of Saint-Emilion. So we ran probably about 2.5 miles through the vineyards to get into the downtown area.
And when Haven says run through the vineyards, like it is for miles and miles as far as you, all right, sorry, Europe, kilometers and kilometers as far as you can see, just rows of grapevines. Like it is very, very pretty countryside and very calm.
Yeah, super picturesque. So we ran through that to get to the little downtown area that we had dinner in the night before, and it kind of did a loop through the downtown area and then ran back through the vineyards. And we learned that Saint-Emilion is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's protected by this certain class trying to make sure that they're preserving the history of the area. And so everything was built with limestone way back when in this region. It's been a wine region for years and years and years. And so any new buildings that are built also have to be built in the same style with the limestone. They can't be taller than the historic buildings, things like that. So it looks like very quaint and uniform and picturesque. We then had breakfast outside at our hotel and amazing food. Would highly recommend getting just the breakfast buffet there. And like we said in Rome as well, or in Florence as well, like you think, ew, like hotel breakfast, you're going to get a little packaged muffin. Like, no, this was incredible cuisine. It was so good. It was hard not to like overstuff yourself, but I really enjoyed having a crepe with Nutella in it because that's like a very French food, and they didn't have it the second day. So it's a little bit bummed out because I only got one of the little mini ones, but it was delightful. Great fruit, great juices, all the things. We went on 2 different vineyard tours on this day. So want to tell us about the first one?
Yeah. So our first tour that day was at Chateau Fon Roque. A+ pronunciation by me, I can tell. This is another great tour. So we were talking to our guide right before we started, and we were talking about going on the other tour at Chateau Mazère the day before. He was like, oh, so you guys know some of this? And he started giving us the deep cuts. And he was going into sometimes like the literal weeds, talking about the ground and the soil and how they organize their plants and do X, Y, and Z and everything at their vineyard. And it was a great tour. Again, a very beautiful property because it's like, of course, a vineyard, there's grapevines everywhere, but they were doing a lot of work with adding additional plants and gardens to their property to just have more sort of pollinators in the area and all of that other science stuff that I don't think of when a glass of wine is put in front of me. But it was a fantastic tour.
Yeah, all these tours really gave me an appreciation for how labor intensive producing wine is, and like a little bit more appreciation for when a glass or bottle of wine is a bit more expensive, like all that goes into it as well. It's years and years of work just to get the one bottle. But we got to try the grapes there, which was, I was really wanting to try them, but I thought like it was going to be really bitter. And honestly, it's like pretty sweet. But they also told us all about the different kinds of grapes that they were growing. So I don't know. I always had a misconception that any sort of blended wine was like a lower quality, but all of these wines were blends of different grapes. So both of these 2 vineyards, it was primarily the Merlot grape. It was like an 80% Merlot. Everyone had a different percentage, but essentially like an 80% Merlot, 15% Cabernet, and then like a small percentage of another, which now I can't think of off the top of my head. But it was really interesting. And we also learned about the difference of the first wine and the second wine of the different wineries, and how their first wine is supposed to be like their higher quality wine and maybe a bit of a richer wine that you would have with a meal, whereas their second wine is going to be lighter. It's not aged as long. It's meant to be enjoyed while you're cooking or right when you have friends come over and you're just having a little snack before dinner. So that was interesting to learn about as well, and how to identify those. And then our last tour in Saint-Emilion.
Chateau Mont-Labert.
Thanks, Billy. This was a much larger vineyard than the other two. So we had like private tours of the other two. They were both these small biodynamic vineyards.
In comparison, this tour started with a video.
So, I mean, it's still small in like standards of mass produced wines, but in comparison to the other two, it was a lot larger and a lot more like, I don't know, it felt like corporate on the tour. But
yeah, way more commercial, because I think that group owns a couple different chateaus in the area. So I don't know if they have a system that they like to use for those kind of things.
But their facilities were gorgeous. I mean, the property was beautiful. That original building was really beautiful. They use it for offices now. I was really hoping we could go inside. But they've built these gorgeous new spaces that almost felt like we've been on a lot of brewery tours in Asheville, and we've been on bourbon tours on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, and like it almost felt like some of those facilities. And so got to see where all their wine was aged and processed and everything. And then we tasted several at the end of that as well, including one that had been aged 10 years. So it was interesting to like have the comparison of the same wine that had just been aged longer and taste the differences as well. That kind of concluded our trip. We had the hotel breakfast the next morning before taking the train back to Paris. Once we got to Paris, we essentially dropped our bags and went straight to the Louvre. And Billy got to see the Mona Lisa.
Let me tell you, the Mona Lisa just inspires such thought and wonder, and it makes you really think when you look at the Mona Lisa. You just wouldn't truly understand or appreciate it until you see it in person.
The Billy's being facetious.
Yeah, extremely. I mean, it's in this room with a massive line. We saw it like through the door and across the building. The thing is tiny. Like, it's a regular size painting. I don't get it. I didn't really get it before probably, and I definitely don't get it now.
It's a bit like what we were talking about with the Trevi Fountain, I think. You know, everyone's like, I have to see it because it's famous and because you studied it in school growing up in art class. But really, there's so many amazing works of art in the Louvre that, in my opinion, shouldn't be the most famous one.
And I mean, I'll admit, I am not an art aficionado or regular follower or fan of developments or history in the world of art. So, like, I'm happy to be wrong. But just to me, there's a lot of other stuff at the Louvre to see. Like, if you go and you see that big line and you're like, uh-oh, it's do this or do something else, I'm voting for the something else.
Which, by the way, would recommend booking like a late ticket to the Louvre. We went at like 4:30 and I think they close at 6, and the lines were much smaller than when we would pass by in the morning on our runs.
And I know this may shock you, those of you that have heard from me before or may know me elsewhere. I am not a huge museum guy either. So about an hour and a half is a good amount of time for a big museum, because you're not going to do all of it. Like, you're going to think, well, we're paying for the ticket. Let's go first thing in the morning and see everything. This place is huge. If you go and see everything, you're walking like a half marathon and you're just going to be exhausted at the end of the day. And then you will have spent it all inside instead of exploring the wonders of Paris.
Speaking of, we had about a 2.25 mile walk to dinner after we went to the Louvre. So we stopped halfway along the Seine and had a beverage and then continued on our way. We had dinner on a boat under the Eiffel Tower. We had great views, but we thought we'd booked it late enough to watch the Eiffel Tower sparkle at night from our table. Turns out the first hour of sparkle was at 10 p.m. that night instead of 9 p.m. So we opted to walk back to the hotel as well along the Seine and got to watch it sparkle about halfway back over the river.
The way you explained it just made me think too, Have we totaled up how many steps we took over this 2 week period? Because it's got to be a ridiculous. Actually, you know what? Let's not do the math because that'll be scary.
I was about to say, I don't think you want to know. It's got to be way too many. Last day of the trip, last day in Paris, we got up, did a run along the Seine, and ended with pastries in the Tuileries again. That was kind of like our favorite thing to do in Paris. And then we took the train to Versailles. I did not get to go to the Palace of Versailles when I went to Paris a few years ago, and so I really wanted to go see it this time. Palace, amazing, stunning, beautiful, so well preserved. It's mind blowing. Crowds there, horrendous. Not sure you ever avoid that at a huge tourist landmark, but I think August and the heat was particularly unbearable for rude people as well.
Like it feels almost like being in traffic and complaining about traffic. You are traffic. Like we're complaining about tourists at a place when we are in fact also tourists. But there's a difference between like acting like a normal human being and walking around and looking at sights and the types of conduct I was seeing in the Palace of Versailles.
So anyways, we saw Versailles. We went back into Paris. We just got to kind of wander around the neighborhood of Saint Germain where we stayed, the second leg of Paris. Really cute, quaint little streets, and found a spot to have some dinner outside to kind of wrap up our European travel. Okay, I want to do some best ofs. So, first off, best hotel.
I'm gonna go Grand Borel. Place was beautiful. Bordeaux.
Agreed. I think that wasn't quite a fair competition for the rest of them.
But the room in Florence at Hotel degli Raffi was beautiful.
That's true. And we actually had like a little bit of extra space in Florence too, because a lot of the European hotels were really, really tiny. Best meal.
Delta Airlines ravioli on the way there.
Okay, for real.
Okay, probably the pasta class that we did in Rome. I don't know. The duck I had again in Bordeaux was really good, but it's probably the pasta class in Rome.
Yeah, not to toot our own horns, but that was my favorite meal as well. The pasta we made in Rome, which obviously a lot of it has to do with the sauces and fillings that our host made.
Yeah, but of the three couples that were there plus Jake, Haven and I made the best pasta dough.
Definitely Jake did, but it's fine. But honestly, like the other two pastas in Rome were close seconds for me as well. Best city for food. For me, it's Rome also, because we also had the really good pizza in Rome and we had pastries for breakfast.
Yeah, it might be Rome. I mean, I was really happy with my meals in Paris too. The food at the beach was okay. The food in Florence was probably better than the beach, but yeah, I might be with you on Rome.
Yeah, I think I would rank best food. I would say Rome first.
We might be discounting the breakfast in Bordeaux because that was a great breakfast.
That's true. Maybe Rome first, then Bordeaux, then Florence, then Paris, then the beach last for sure.
I'm surprised you have Paris below Florence.
I think you had a lot better meals in Paris than me. It's harder to get like quality filling vegetarian meals, but I thought the pasta class in Florence was really good.
And you might also just be trying to curry favor with the Italians after offending them in Florence.
That's it. Best city for sightseeing.
I'm going to go Paris because it's all really concentrated along the river. So it's really easy to see a ton of sights within like a little 1-2 mile radius.
Yeah, it's almost a tie for me of Paris and Rome. They're just very different, like what you're sightseeing. Like the architecture styles are quite different. I'm partial to the Parisian architecture. I just think every building is beautiful, but we saw more like historic sites probably in Rome.
Yeah, it's like when you think about sightseeing, you think of landmarks. The landmarks in Rome are so impressive. But even just like the average building in Paris was very ornate and well done and built. So like that, once you put it all together, like everything you saw in Paris, I should say everything. Most of what you saw in Paris, you were like, oh, that's nice.
Best excursion, activity, museum.
I really liked the second tour that we did in Bordeaux. But I really like that tour. I mean, our tour guide was cool and he explained a lot of stuff in depth for us. A day at the beach. I love a day at the beach, and we had an umbrella and chaise lounges out there. So, like, yeah, it was incredibly hot, but that was a really nice day to relax and literally put my feet up for a couple hours.
Yeah, I think I read an entire book on the beach that day. I would also say best museum, maybe. I mean, I'd been to the Louvre before, and I get kind of overwhelmed when they're so big. I really enjoyed the Capitoline Museum in Rome when Jake and I went. Beach is, hard to beat, especially when it's crystal clear water. All the running is always my favorite because I enjoy exploring a new place on the run, and I feel like you get to see a lot in a shorter amount of time.
Can I say my favorite excursion was going to get that sandwich in Florence?
Yeah, I think that counts. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't pick Florence for best food just for that sandwich.
Don't get me wrong. That sandwich might have been the best thing I ate the whole trip. That wasn't... Like, again, the pasta in Rome was great, and that's more of like a sit-down big dinner. But that sandwich was amazing. Just the rest of the food, like the hotel breakfast was good, but not the best we had. All in all, I don't think I'd put it number one.
But then really, I think my favorite activities are the cooking classes. And I love cooking, but I also felt like it felt a little, I mean, obviously it's an Airbnb experience. It's meant for tourists, but it felt slightly less touristy to me because we were like getting a little bit out of the city center, getting into someone's apartment, like learning the techniques that they make pasta with their families and for their families. Like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed that. And when you think of Italy, like that's one of the first things you think of, at least for me, is pasta. Overall favorite city or stop on the trip?
I might go Paris here. It's hard because a lot of the places were very different. Like, it's hard to compare. Paris is probably the biggest city that we went to, at least feels the most like a big city when you're walking around it, to Bordeaux when we were in like miles and miles of grapes to the beach. It's kind of tricky to do that, but I think it's Paris because you always had something to do. The places we stayed were comfortable, so there was air conditioning is what I'm saying. The food that I had was generally good, and I just really enjoyed being along the river there, like being by the water.
Yeah, that is the best place to just like go and stroll aimlessly without like having a particular destination in mind. Paris is basically tied for New York City as my favorite city. I can't pick. They're 1A and 1B. So Paris is probably my favorite leg as well, although I had been there before and I hadn't been to any of the other spots before. So it wasn't the one I was most excited about because I was I'd never been to Italy, I'd never been to Bordeaux. So I was excited to see new places, but Paris is still number one international city in my heart. Where would you go back?
I would go back to Paris. I would go back to Bordeaux probably. I mean, there are a lot of different like villages and towns that are all in Bordeaux area that you could pick a different place if you wanted to. I would go back to the beach in Italy. I'd probably go to a different one just because the food wasn't great. I mean, I would go back to Rome and Florence. I wouldn't do it really fast because I feel like we saw a lot of what there was to see when we were there, and that was kind of the point. So I would go other places in Europe before those two.
Yeah, we have a long list of places we want to see before we go back to these places probably. But all in all, an incredible trip. Would highly recommend any of these spots. I will be having a guide to each of these cities come out on Substack. So if you're looking to travel to one of these cities and you want a little bit more of the nitty gritty and you want the actual names of places we went and stayed, I'll be sharing more. So you can subscribe to the Health by Haven Substack, or you can message me on Instagram if you want the details or any of my hot takes on the spots. But hope you guys enjoyed this little recap. It was fun for us to kind of like relive the trip again. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about it, and you can kind of put some of the stories to the photos that I've shared on Instagram. But thanks for letting me catch up with you guys again this week. And I look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll be sharing a little bit more about our move to New York City. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. make such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.